Alright, welcome. This is gonna be, I don't even know what episode, I'll figure that out in post, but the big discussion around the NA import rules, and I've gotten some looks, I've gotten some takes, I've listened to some of the interviews that Travis Gafford put out, and I wanted to weigh in on this discussion and try to make sure we're applying nuance as best as we can, because it's such a complicated issue, or at least it's a complicated topic, because it's not normal to have these import rules in esports. It's like Riot's the only one that's really doing this. They're doing this in Valorant actually too for casters, but that's a whole other topic. You can look up Uber shouts for that one. But the idea that we're gonna put out import rules to protect a region from, or protect the players of a region is dumb. It doesn't play out in classic economic theory. Price control and not allowing real competition from outside to really make your scene, make your industry grow isn't healthy. It's not good. It doesn't develop anything. There's examples of this out in India with the steel industry, where there's a bunch of steel companies out there and they have a relative monopoly back in earlier 1900s, and then India got rid of its protectionist policies, and a lot of those Indian steel companies went under, but the ones that stuck around, those are the ones that had to innovate, had to get better, had to create better products, and they're better for it, and the country's better for it, and the people are better for it. So the entire idea of import rules out the gate, when applying it to sports, it follows the same thing. The talent or the product is different, but it's still, it's still being consumed here. We're still looking to try to actually have something that develops and gets better. So the idea of the import rule, if I'm recalling correctly, that came around when there was this all Chinese roster that came into NA and was kind of contending. LCS team. What was that? LMQ. Yeah, LMQ. That was a fun year. That was a fun year because I think Complexity Black was in there when Prawley was playing mid, and he would go Zed, and they actually would have 80-minute games. It was actually one of the most fun times for me as a fan of the LCS way back. So, but that happened, and then if I'm recalling everything correctly, Riot implements this import rule to sort of protect mostly NA. EU doesn't care about imports. They have plenty of talent. Korea and China don't really care. China does take Korean talent. Look at the Korean exodus. But NA is the primary import region, and we have a lot of the great challenges that Hunter from Golden Guardians really mentioned in his interview with Travis Gafford. Travis put out this 27-minute video where he clips when he actually asks these direct questions to ownership or to major management in all of the LCS teams, actually. So if you want to go check that out to get more in depth. But I just don't think the import rule in its premise is a good idea for the health of NA or the competitive viability of the region. I don't think it helps us grow. I don't think it actually makes us reflect well enough on our competitive culture enough to make significant changes year over year. We keep having these little moments from MSI and Worlds that inform us how behind the curve we are, and we just keep drawing conclusions that don't, I think, really go down to the root issues about how we approach the game, how we approach competition, how we approach improvement, training, and practice. Because some of these Korean teams, and even G2, Perks pointed this out in his recent interview on the Crackdown with Thorin and Dominate. G2 doesn't have the kind of money to actually provide the kind of lifestyles that the C9 players have. Jack spoils the shit out of these players more or less, and he has a great enough culture though where it's not clear that these players are spoiled and they're just collecting checks. I don't think Jack's about that. Is the culture he's built at Cloud9 doesn't really let that exist. but like G2 has been a easily top 10, top 8 team for the past 2 years in the world, and Carlos has not got the kind of money that NA does to take care of their players or pay their players. That's why the buyout of Perks was just so much. So it's just really frustrating when we're kind of sitting there running on the idea that changing the import rule would be a good idea or bad idea, like on this cut and dry situation. So FlyQuest put out an idea to actually like adjust it to where maybe NA gets more access to perhaps Latin America, like we did with Oceania, where we have no import rule limitations on any oceanic imports, which has been some fun. I mean, Niles has yet to, have enough time to really say whether or not it was worth it. Who is it on 100 Thieves? I cannot remember his name right now. The ADC on 100 Thieves, he's shown himself to be quite good. And then Perks is positive on him. I think the whole team's positive on Fudge. And I think Fudge has started to have better showing on these weekends. But like, it's just not clear that you're very much importing the toppest levelist of talent. So I don't know about that. Like, it could be expanded and that could be cool or whatnot. I just don't think these, like, in basic economic histories and theories, import rules aren't a good idea. Now, and Jack is of this idea as well, because with his Overwatch League teams, with his Cloud9 teams, for a CSGO, Overwatch, for the other esports that Cloud9 takes part in, there's no import rules, right? It's the only one that actually even brings this idea into play, and I just don't think it actually is a good one. I just don't. In a very blanket state. So, the great concern that would happen out of this is that the NA talent would get overshadowed. Like, DeMonte would be out of a job at McDonald's because Reggie's Twitter account was pirated away by someone. And that's a possibility, but it's like, if you're going to actually try to contend to be some of the best and you need to try to become some of the best, DeMonte every year seems to have these champion pool limitations, and it's kind of surprising actually in the game that was played yesterday on the 19th that his TF wasn't banned out. Because the moment you remove any of these roaming mid laners, he just can't match up in the mage situation, and assassins haven't been viable for years. So the limitations on NA talent are there for developmental reasons, maybe even for just competitive culture reasons. So that's where Jack, in his interview with Travis, pointed out that a requirement for the orgs to start putting out more tournaments, more like really put in commitments for NA development, which I think is a great idea, a great step in the right direction to really push and pressure these major orgs to really develop the talent in NA. I just think that I always keep wanting to go back to elements of culture that really help push people forward, push regions, push the competition forward. So I think Jack has a really great idea there. I think that if we actually did have a lot of tournaments and we had decent broadcasts to highlight these players, highlight the talent, highlight the play, it would be a great service to the region to really help build it up. Like LS over in Korea, and Korea doesn't have our problems, but it's its own fun thing that I think Dominate figured out, and Sideshow and Brent I think figured out over in Overwatch, that you can't treat academy teams or academy systems like trash and ignore them, or act like they're not important or relevant when they're the future. You can't undermine your children because they're going to replace you. Because Dominate used to just dog all over, LCS Academy teams and just say it just wasn't worth watching and stuff like that. But you have to give your attention, but give your attention enough that you can actually say something worth your platform, I think. And Dom's made that adjustment. So what I wanted to highlight, I think, at the end of this rant is at least one thing I wanted to highlight is that Monte Cristo put this idea out on a Summoning Insight episode in the last 6 months or so, where where we would actually have a premier global league centered in wherever in the world, but the best teams in the world that buy out those slots contend for, like, it'd be the NFL, the NBA, the Overwatch League of League of Legends. So you would have all these regional leagues for Overwatch. For an Overwatch comparison, they have all these contenders: Korean contenders, LA contenders, North American contenders, European contenders. And so you could treat those as, like, the LCS would stay, the LEC would stay, all those would stay, but we would now have a creation of a brand new Super League above all that, where the toppest of talent goes. And Worlds would go away, MSI could go away. Like, there could be, tournaments that maybe, like, have regions interact or something like that. But at the end of the day, there is just an ultimate league that has its own Super Bowl or final situation, or just, tournament to decide, like, the best teams and of the best talent in the world. And I really like that idea. I really like the idea of just having a Super League above all this region locked situation. That just I don't think is conducive to finding and developing the best talent in the world. Jack has a very global mindset about it. I am concerned and scared for, like, NA talent, and trying to keep the import rules as they are, more or less, to not squelch NA talent or have these teams start just importing, like, 5-man rosters, and now all the NA talent doesn't ever get a chance. And that has some viability in it. I just don't think that. I just think it jumps the gun. I think that conclusion jumps the gun. I think that there is solid NA talent in the region, and NA talent that is showing itself right now in the league. Golden Guardians, FlyQuest being some of the major rookie rosters this year, and Dignitas showing with at least Neo in his recent games. There is significant NA talent that can show up, that can develop, that is hungry to grow, that should be replacing the old guard. I think this year should show, and I think it will show, what talent can come from NA, that there are rookies out there that are fighting, that are hungry, that want to contend with the best in the world. And it's really, it kind of ends up on the teams and on the scouting, and on also any of the entertainers, the eyes that out there that have voices and audiences to hear their voices, to really highlight and really develop the scouting skill, the scouting abilities of these teams, of the orgs, of the region, to identify talent and really bring it in and get it moving, get it growing, get it developing, and really raise the average IQ for the scene, for the league, so we can actually try to, stop coming home after Worlds and, being depressed and in this, as Hunter put it, cycle of suck. So I think the import rule, based on, like, economic history, should go away. I think that there can be this subsidy idea where that, like Jack suggested, where teams have to really develop and get involved in the amateur scenes more. And I think that's just good business anyway for them. To just really be developing, like, local talent. It's much easier to, I would imagine it's much easier to run it here than to run it there, wherever there is. And they would just end up finding their own markets. I just think the import rule is a super dumb and super limiting. But I think that it really needs to make sure that this import rule change can't only apply to NA. It's just dumb. It's very dumb. It's very unfair. We have all of our geographic issues for how big the country is and ping issues. But it just, I'm sorry, no. Like, I'm just not okay with NA getting all these special rules and special treatments when we're just trying to stack the deck in our favor. It's just an unfair situation. China is bigger than us geographically speaking, but most of it's all focused near Beijing and Shanghai. So I just, no, we can do better than that. We can do better than trying to alter the rules of the game to give us a chance to win. It's too shallow of an approach. It's not healthy. It's not conducive to developing talent, to having a respectable league, because if we make this big import rule change, we're the only ones that can now import whoever we want. Like, how much clout really comes from being able to say, like, yeah, we imported like the best out of China, Europe, and Korea. Our entire team, none of them are actually from North America, actually, and we won Worlds. Like, it's never going to be taken seriously. Like, if say Cloud9 of spring 2020 had actually been able to go to Worlds and they had, really contended and did us far more proud than TSM did, that'd have been worth it. That'd have really been worth it for what that team represented between Licorice as an NA talent, Vulcan as NA talent, Blabber as NA talent. Niski and Sven were like the only imports, but Sven's really committed to being a part of NA and really having his victories here. He's had his time in LEC and he's here now, and Perks is of the same mindset. So there's something to be said that if NA wants to have self-respect and to garner respect from the international community for really, contending on the international stage, getting rid of this import rule, but really actually properly developing our talent is still front and foremost, because we can't just get special treatment or lift this import rule and maintain just any amount of dignity for what we do, for trying to compete at the highest level. So I just want to throw that out there, try to get that shambling rant out of the way. So yeah, and follow LEC because it's a way better product. Sorry, love you LCS, but Europe does it better. Go ahead and give you the follows. There we go. Follows. Thanks for watching. Catch y'all later.